Welcome, seekers and stargazers. Have you ever wondered if the universe is whispering its secrets to us, hidden in the stars and beyond what we can see? What if our three-dimensional world is just a fragment of a much larger and multi-dimensional truth? In this exploration, we'll journey through the boundaries of perception to discover how astrology, numerology, and alchemology act as a bridge to the fourth dimension. It's not just about planetary alignments. It's about decoding higher dimensional patterns that shape our reality. Drawing inspiration from Ouspensky's Tertium Organum, the sacred geometry of the hypersphere with Claude Bragdon, and the visionary works of Buckminster Fuller, will uncover how the universe's design offers profound insights into our spiritual evolution. This is your invitation to expand your consciousness, to unlock the key to fourth dimensional awareness, and to see the universe in a completely new way. Together we'll explore the interconnectedness of all things and the powerful role that we play in this cosmic dance. The stars are not just above us, they are within us. Namaste, beautiful souls. Let me know if you can hear me. I'm so excited to be here. This is Dr. Danny, physician astrologer. I hope you guys are living your best life and having a magical day. Man, this is going to be a neat presentation. Today is January 25th, 2025. There's some very special alignments in the sky. It's not the grand alignment of all the planets, but you can, if you're lucky, catch a glimpse of every single planet in the sky after sunset. I'm going to boost myself up a little bit here. All right, cool. So we are going to talk about today the fourth dimension. Yeah, I think it's time. I think we need to really just kind of sit down together, take a look at the concept of the fourth dimension. We're going to look at Ouspensky's work, and then we're going to look at a few videos on YouTube, just short ones, to kind of get an idea of what fourth dimensional objects actually look like. And what does that mean for us that only perceive like 0.01% of the entire 3D reality, what that might actually mean for us. This book is pretty good, Tertium Organum. I don't have it at my fingertips, but I'll show you a picture of it. It's about this thick. It's not very thick, but it's very, very dense. There's no graphics. There's no bibliography. There's a short introduction in the book, and then it's just compact, like filling the margins of Russian that's translated into English, describing verbally how the fourth dimension might look. And so it's super, super fascinating. And what I found when I was checking into the energy of Tertium Organum and P.D. Ouspensky, when I looked into the story of how this book came to be translated, I found some amazing connections between not only Ouspensky, but a man named Basarabov, Nikolai Basarabov, that's it, who brought Ouspensky's book to America in his travels, gave the book to Charles Bragdon, who translated the book into English and then published it here in the United States circa 1920. So we're talking about gentlemen that are like OG truthers, okay? They literally know, they were thinking about this stuff 100 years ago. Okay, without all the electrons flying around them, they were just sitting there pondering. So this is going to be a very fascinating presentation, and I'm excited to share it with you. And then really, one of the most amazing things about the whole decode that I did is that Buckminster Fuller was inspired by Bragdon's ideas of the hypersphere or the hypercube. And he was an architect, and he's famous for the Buckminster Fullerene, which is C60. Or buckyballs, right? So this is going to be so cool to tie all of this together. And it's an exercise in fourth dimensional awareness, which is what we need if we're going to be evolving past the third dimension and to be able to perceive and see and work like the magicians, wizards, and sorcerers that we are with fourth dimensional energy. So yeah, I'm excited to be here. I had a very interesting morning yesterday, you guys. If you don't mind, I'd love to just kind of share with you real quick what happened to me yesterday morning, just so you're all aware that this can happen to you. It was quite stunning, actually. So I'm going to share my screen in a second and show you the post I I put to Facebook. But basically, I almost got scammed. I almost went to the bank and withdrew a bunch of money to give it to someone who I believed was a police officer who was impersonating a police officer on the telephone, and it was pretty intense. I was sitting by myself. My husband was at a doctor's appointment, and I kept getting this phone call that said no caller ID, but the message on it was, "This is Officer so and so from the Corpus Christi Police, and we need to talk to you about a confidential matter." So the phone rang again, and I went ahead and I picked it up, and I said, "Okay, this is." He asked for me by name, introduced himself as the officer, gave me his badge number, and then told me quite a tale. He basically told me that I failed to appear to court on the 21st, that I was subpoenaed on the 20th of December, and that that I signed that document that I would be there. And so someone quote unquote forged my signature. They needed to do a handwriting test on me. But because I didn't show, the judge wants me to either pay the fines for failure to appear and contempt of court and forging a signature, or be detained for 72 hours. So I'm hearing this on the phone. This guy's telling me this, and I'm freaking out. I'm by myself. And he says, and because you are opting to pay the fine and not be detained, you need to stay on the phone with me while you figure out what you're doing. Well, I didn't have my car. My wallet was in my car. My husband had my car. So I said, dude, I've got to take my husband's car to where he is and switch cars. So, that's going to be a minute. I need to do this. And he says, well, okay, well, I'll stay on the phone with you just in case someone pulls you over. We don't want you to be arrested. I was like, geez, this is crazy, right? I'm freaking out. I'm sobbing. I'm just like, this is unreal. I cannot believe you are telling me this story. He had hit every single one of my triggers. I swear he must have been like a psychologist or psychologically trained in order to be able to do this. So I am in my car, in my husband's truck, on the phone with this guy, driving to where my husband is with my Jeep. When I get there, I can't tell my husband anything because the guy says this is confidential. It's based on a former patient of yours. Confidentiality is super important. So please, you cannot say anything. Otherwise, you will be immediately arrested. I was like, good grief. So my husband's following me to the bank. And when we get to the bank, he runs in and he looks at me. He says, this is a scam. You need to hang up. I was like, no, let's just deal with this. He goes into the bank, tells the ladies I'm coming in, and then gets on the phone to the Corpus Christi Police Department and asks for that particular officer, who he actually was available, and spoke to him on the phone. And he said, yeah, that's a thing. You need to hang up right now. So you would think that that would be the end of it, right? No. This guy calls my phone back twice. My husband answers, and then his chief, the other guy that I was talking to, because they transfer you back and forth to make it seem like you're in some sort of government official sort of thing. The chief called back to a number that was ghosted by Google to look exactly like the Corpus Christi Police Department. I mean, this was so surreal and real at the same time. But my husband, he's such a badass. He was like, "Okay, well, sir, she's not going to do what you ask, and you can come to my house." So that ended that. I mean, it was so crazy. I couldn't even believe that I was going through that. So I'm going to share this with you. I want you to see what this scam looks like. So if this is happening in your area, or if you get a phone call like this, don't freaking do what they say. And here it is. So the U.S. Marshal Services urge the public not to divulge information. Scams that target citizens with false jury service or criminal charges claims prey on people's fears, threatening to arrest for a missed summons for jury service or fabricated criminal charges. These types of scams crop up with enough regularity to keep the federal court personally and continually on the alert. So unfortunately, they called a YouTuber, and so I'm going to put it out there in public that it happened to me. So, he had a badge number. He had citation numbers. He had the judge's name. He had my address. He had my phone number. He knew that I was a doctor, and he literally played on my fears. So this is what they do. They attempt to impersonate U.S. Marshals, law enforcement officers, public defenders, assistant United States attorneys, and they convince the victim to pay a fine or avoid arrest. So I know not all of you are gullible like me. are a little bit more discerning of scams. But some of you are sweet and kind and will do what the law tells you to do, and because you don't want to get in trouble and you don't want to like disturb anything. You don't want to make waves. So for those of you that are similar to me, I just want you guys to be aware that this is happening. So I did my duty. I put it out there both on Facebook and on YouTube. So we'll put that one to bed. But how are you guys doing? I hope you all are well. Let's see who's here today with me. Because, man, this is going to be a good presentation. Let's see. We've got Ultimus 5x5. Thank you. We've got Lori from Washington on vacation. Fellow travelers here. Hello. Nanny Boo Boo. Howdy, Dr. Danny. Hello. All right. Grand Saturday, Dr. Danny, Christine Yan. Thank you so much for coming. And Adonai Blackwood is here. All right. Cool. Well, we have 17. That's a prime number, so it's probably a good time to get started. You may need to listen to this presentation again. It's going to be mostly visual. I'm not going to do any math with you guys today. I'm not going to show you pi phi or the fine structure constant. Well, actually, at the end, I might just give you a little sneak peek of what I'm working on. But I'm super excited for you guys to see this presentation. So let's get started. Here we go. Actually, first, I'm going to show you the sky because this is the grand alignment that everyone's so excited about. And this is the sky right now-ish. Maybe a little bit later. Let's go back an hour. Yeah, here we go. So there's the moon in Scorpio and Ophiuchus. So we have this waning moon right here. This is like the few days before the probably let's see. So the new moon is on the 29th. So yeah, tomorrow the 3 days before and the 3 days after is when you do your new moon energy. But the moon's through Ophiuchus right now, and I love it when the moon's in this part of the sky. I get the best downloads. I have the best readings. Like Spirit's really clear. It comes through for me. So it's always nice to have a stack of charts when the moon's right here. In a couple days, the moon's going to move and conjunct the sun in Capricorn. Mercury is trailing behind the sun in Sagittarius. And then we have Venus and Saturn. Venus is now in Pisces, getting closer and closer to Neptune and separating away from Saturn, who's still in Aquarius. So let's look at the other side of the sky because this is what everyone's excited about. And this will be right after sunset. We're going to have Mars on the eastern horizon, rising in the stars of Gemini. And Mars is still retrograde, will be retrograde until about February 28th. We have Jupiter in Taurus, also retrograde. Uranus is also right here, still retrograde, turning direct on the 29th. And then you can see evening star Venus and Saturn as the sun is setting. But yeah, all these planets are up here. Pluto's right here. Or no, actually, if we back it up an hour, Pluto will still be in the sky too. Yeah, so Pluto will be right here behind the sun. Mars will be here. So Mercury, Pluto, Sun, Venus, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune's right here, and Mars. Everything in the sky all at once tonight. So if you have clear skies right after the sunset, do go check it out. It's still quite a sight to behold. And Mars is really bright right now because he's on the other side of the sky from the sun. So all the light reflecting from the sun onto Mars is beaming back to us. And you can see it. It's very, very beautiful. And then, of course, if you follow Orion's belt down, you'll see star Sirius in Canis Major. Okay, so that's our sky right now. Go check it out. I'm going to get into the videos a little bit later as we get into the presentation. So let me just go ahead and grab that. Here it is. All right. So this is the question to everyone here listening or who will be listening later. What if our experience of reality is just the tip of the iceberg? I mean, think about this. When we think in dimensions, and I'm going to go through the dimensions geometrically for you so you'll get an idea of where my mind is and how I'm thinking about it visually. There's so much that we think we see and experience, right? Even the study of matter, which is physics, the study of matter and phenomenon, have literally come to the conclusion in the last 50 years that matter doesn't even exist. Most of what we know about how things work comes from mathematical computations and derived observations. So, the point in the book of Tertium Organum, he basically takes the whole idea of Aristotle's this is A, so therefore it is A, and says, no, A is not A, and B is not B. And everything that we think we see and feel and touch and experience as phenomenon is actually not real. It exists in another dimension, and we see only a small part of it. So this book was published by P.D. Ouspensky in 1912, and it was titled Tertium Organum, and it was originally published in Russian. So this is Tertium Organum, basically the etymology of it broken down. So tertium means the third. So the context refers to the third in a sequence. So it implies the progression from earlier works considered in foundational in philosophy and logic. And indeed, P.D. Ouspensky did quote many other philosophers in his book, including Aristotle and what's that other guy's name? I can see the word. um, some other authors that he was influenced by and said, well, wait, maybe if we think about it this way, we can come to a better understanding. And organum means tool, instrument, or method. So in philosophical tradition, organum refers to a systematic method or framework for reasoning and understanding. And that's what this whole book is. He takes you through it logically. The first half of the book is describing each of the dimensions, 0 through 4, in a way that we could potentially understand it mentally using words. There's no graphics in this book, okay? And it was beautifully done. If you combine it together, it means the third tool or the third method. So the title positions the work as a successor of two earlier foundational works, Organon by Aristotle and Novum Organum by Francis Bacon. So even his play with words, the way he spelled things, was important when he presented this book. Literally, this man was the OG of truth, okay? And was thinking about things that would probably, even still 100 years later, literally blow us away. So this book is considered a new method or tool for understanding reality. And if you revisit it and the concepts that I'm speaking to you sound familiar, it's because most of the stuff that you see on the internet and spiritual communities talking about the fourth dimension either came directly from this book or from others that have written works based on this book as well. All right, so this is the guy right here, and it was written in Russian. That's the amazing part. So it had to make a journey to become the book that we all know and love. And this is this man's career, just to sort of highlight him as an OG. So his first book was actually called The Fourth Dimension, and it was written in 1909. And it was influenced by the ideas, Hinton, that was who I was trying to refer to, which treat the fourth dimension as an extension in space. But what Ouspensky does is says that the fourth dimension is actually time, but it is matter that is unrealized. So the way that he does it, and I'll get into this a little bit more, but he basically says that as you move up in dimensions, that which moves and is perceived through time is actually something that is still and solid in the higher dimension. Okay, so when a second dimensional creature sees something move, they're actually observing something that is still in the third dimension. So for us to observe something in the fourth, moving through time here in the third dimension, is actually something that is still in the fourth dimension, which I find just completely mind-blowing if you try to wrap your head around that. Now, his second work was this book that we're considering today, and it was published in 1912. Yeah, here it is. A is A, concluding that higher logic, A is both A and not A. This was Ouspensky's idea. So Nicholas Bessarabov took a copy of this book to America, and this was between 1912, when it was originally published, and 1920, when Bragdon published it after translating it. But it was this man, Nicholas Bessarabov, who took a copy of Tertium Organum to America and placed it in the hands of Claude Bragdon. And he was the one who used all the information from Tertium Organum and the other books that I'm sure he studied to design a hypercube. Okay, so here we have fourth dimensional objects already being implemented in the early 1900s. It's just mind blowing when you think about it. Ouspensky did travel to India and Egypt, so he was also on site downloading this knowledge of higher dimensions, like literally the original spiritual OG right here. So here is Bessarabov's story, and he was actually a musician and a writer. So very interesting guy. He worked as a mechanical engineer and a draftsman. And he played the horn, and he also had a collection of instruments. So we're going to look at Ouspensky's astrology and Bessarabov's astrology as well. And then finally, the guy who published this book, Claude Fayette Bragdon, he was an architect and a writer and a stage designer. And he was born in 1866, about 12 years before Ouspensky. So if you think about, look at when he died, okay? He was 80 years old. And he probably had Tertium Organum in his hand somewhere in the late 19 teens, early 1920s, which means that he was approaching, like, I don't know, 60 years old when he finally got that book. So just remember, guys, even in this time frame, you're never too old for something new and amazing to happen to you. And uh, Bragdon actually had to seek out Ouspensky because Ouspensky was living the hermit lifestyle by the time he had the book translated and published in English. So let's get into it. Let's get into the fourth dimension. What is this? So like I said, Ouspensky spends the first 7 chapters of this book going through words, describing to you in words what the fourth dimension is, what it looks like. But he does that by comparing the lower dimensions and what a life form might experience in these dimensions. So the second half of the book, he spends the rest of the time speaking of dimensions almost like the density model that we have right now that came from the law of one, where we have the first density through the 7th density, and then we elevate and we repeat. Let me make sure you guys are hearing me okay. All right. Let's see. I think so. Yeah, we're good. 27 watching. Okay, awesome. So he will go through the energy of the first dimension, and he describes what life might be like for this first dimensional organism. Then he describes the second density and what that might. So he talks about animals and pets and dogs, and then he speaks about how we experience things. And then he dives into this fourth density or fourth dimensional energy. So it really is. He takes it psychologically as well once we get further into the book. So this is super interesting. I was trying to actually say that the densities and the dimensions were not the same thing, but he really does a great job of tying them back together so that we can understand it in a way that our 3D minds can understand. So whenever you think of geometry, it's helpful to sort of close your eyes and think of 3-dimensional space. And this first slide, I'm just going to show you a point. Okay, this is 0 dimensions. There's really no up, down, left, or right. It just is what it is. There's not even any time. It's right now, it's yesterday, it's tomorrow, it's all time and all space in one spot. That's all it is. There's no phenomenon, there's no matter. It just is what it is. When you get into the first dimension, then you have a plane of existence or a line of existence. So now this creature in the first dimension can travel through time in one of 2 directions. They can go left or they can go right. But if you include time, then they're only moving in one direction through time. Okay, so you can think of it, they can either move this way or that way, but if you add time into it, they can only move this way. And so what they're not realizing is the second dimension energy that's above and below their line of existence. They merely see it as phenomena through time, a dot here and a dot there that they experience as they move through time. So that's first dimensional experience. Then you have second dimensional experience, which is literally just the flat plane. Okay, so now you can go forward, backward, left, and right. But all you're going to see visually as a second dimensional creature is lines in front of you. And anytime you have a shape, so let's say, for example, we want to set this singing bowl onto I don't know if you guys can even see me, but if we set this singing bowl, I have a singing bowl in my hand. If you place it on this line, or if you place it on this plane, you're going to see just the line of a circle. And how might that second dimensional creature experience this line in front of him? Well, as the edges of that line move away, they actually appear to move. So the movement through time as this creature goes around this circle is the third dimensional energy of the bowl, because it's just a solid structure that's not moving in three-dimensional space. But as a two-dimensional creature moves towards this and sees a line that is moving in size and shape, they perceive movement or phenomena. So you see where we're going with this. Now we've got three-dimensional space, which is where we are presumably. I actually think we're more two-dimensional than three-dimensional, because when you dive into this a little bit, all we see in the third dimension is surfaces, right? I mean, if you think about, we're in a space, but everything is just surface. You can't actually see inside the box. So this is represented to give you the illusion of depth as the third dimension. And so what would the fourth dimension actually look like? So this is where I want to step into just a few videos to illustrate what fourth dimension might look like to us. It's really quite stunning, and it's not what you think. So let me open this up. We'll hide that for a second. Let's go into here. Let's open this video. So this would be like a sphere, a three-dimensional sphere moving through a two-dimensional space, and it's showing you what the circle would look like to a two-dimensional creature. See how it goes in and out? It doesn't have any depth to it, but it has movement, even though this is not an animated object. It's simply moving through the space. So that's what we would see. Okay, so you can infer what something might look like. Oh, this is cool. So this is the fourth dimensional object moving through 3D space. This is what we would perceive in our land of third dimensional surface world. We would perceive a sphere, a circular spherical object coming out of nowhere and into our realm, like so. You see that? So that's crazy. Does anyone ever experience this kind of phenomenon? I wonder. A lot of people write about it. Some of you may have had experiences like this where something just appears to you and then disappears. This is fourth dimension moving through our third dimensional space. So it's in a dimension that is perpendicular to all of our spatial dimensions, but not in a way that we can even understand it. And Ouspensky makes a great point when he actually talks about a two-dimensional creature trying to understand three dimensions. They just can't, because there's so much depth and there's so much imagery and there's so many concepts and words that we have around what we see that they couldn't even relate to it, because they would only see moving lines. Okay. And this is why I think we're in a surface world, because this is a three-dimensional box. This is what we would see in a three-dimensional room, right? But we can't see inside the box. If we could actually see fourth dimension, then we would see inside that box. All we can see really is the shadow of the fourth dimensional hypercube, which they call a tesseract. So what this is illustrating is that a fourth dimensional object will cast a three-dimensional shadow in space-time. So let's see where else he goes. So here he makes a good point on this video, similarly to that two-dimensional creature. Where did it go? There it is. Okay. Similarly, that two-dimensional creature looking at the sphere inside the box can only see the lines of the box on the outside. They can't see inside of it. Whereas if we could visualize this box four-dimensionally, we would see the sphere inside the box. So I hope that makes sense to you guys. It is. It's like a ghost. Spiritually lucky says a ghost, an apparition. Absolutely. That's what it is when things appear and reappear. But now I'm going to blow your mind because this is, let's play this. If we could actually see in 4 dimensions, those those cubes are actually sitting still, even though in 3 dimensions they appear to be moving. So what they're doing here is they normally look like this in 3 dimension. A 4th dimensional object moves in 3rd dimensional space, even though it's still in 4th dimensional space. So they're just rotating it on a horizontal plane, and in a second they're going to rotate it on the vertical plane. What? Okay, so that just changes everything. Everything just looks so strange, doesn't it? And I think a cube, the tesseract, is harder to understand than the sphere analogy, where we've got this sphere that's appearing and disappearing. What you're going to get with this cube is you could see a triangle, you could see a pyramid, you could see just the lines of the box. But here you have that rotation. So now you can see what we might be seeing in 3-dimensional space. And this is kind of what spirits and apparitions look like when they come to us, don't they? They're ethereal. They move, they shimmer. They're not rigid, they're not solid. You can't touch it here. So I just thought that was super interesting, and hopefully that helps you guys think of it visually. I have a couple more videos here. This is the hypersphere. So we'll just play that. This is what a 4th dimensional sphere would look like if we could see it. It would be ethereal. So this is probably what spirits and apparitions feel like to us. This is what the dreamscape is like. It's always shifting, always moving. Sometimes movies get it. They when they're showing movies like which was it? That Marvel movie with Dr. what's his name? The time traveler guy. I mean, he could do this. He could bend realities and move realities around. And this is what's happening on the 4th dimension. So we don't even have words to describe this. We can't even draw this in a 2-dimensional space so that people understand it. Here's another tesseract or 4th dimensional cube. So if you don't understand the 4th dimension, that's fine. Like if you can't, there are mathematical computations you can do if your mind is into that thing. It's too much for me. I like to just try and visualize it and see that what we perceive is maybe just the boundary between like the 3rd and the 4th dimension, that we actually live on the surface of the 3rd dimension, at a boundary between 3rd and 4th, where 4th dimensional objects can come through, and we can sometimes see them. One of the most amazing things about Ouspensky's writing is he actually does talk to us about the ability to evolve your perception. So in other words, you're not, yeah, Doctor Strange, thank you, Ultimus. You're not necessarily confined as a soul, as a spirit, to the 3rd dimension. You're not confined here. You can evolve. You can expand your awareness to see and to understand the 4th dimension. And what we perceive in time as 3rd dimensional creatures, like a car whizzing by, or even life, for example, because life evolves through time, doesn't it? Even though it might sit still, it might take 80 years to watch my lifetime evolution from baby to old lady to death. But I am the entire creature. I am the entire soul from the embryo to the ashes. That is all me. Okay. So, and because we see it in slices of time, we perceive it as a life phenomenon or something that's moving or something that's alive. When in reality, like my 4th dimensional physical being is all of those manifestations. Like every facet that you look at me in 4th dimension, you would see the entire life cycle. So let me just show you real quick this picture, this movie of a life cycle, just to get what I'm trying to say. This is about a minute, so while I ramble, but just picture those phases, those slices of your life, and imagine them all together at once, right? This is a human moving through the third dimension as a fourth dimensional creature. It's magical, it's powerful. It's almost as if, like, the more you evolve, the more awareness you have, then the more you change, that slice of your life that you're in becomes the visible slice of your life. And this is kinda sad because now the lady passes away, but it keeps going, life keeps going, and we are continually moving through these cycles, these ebbs and these flows. So it's almost reassuring, really, to have a fourth dimensional awareness because you understand that these movements through time and space, no matter what dimension you're aware of, are all part of a bigger whole, are all part of a bigger sensation that we have. So I'm going to just check in with you guys, make sure you're all with me and enjoying. Oh, cool. We have 34. So let's see. Great audio. You're never too old to learn. And yes, be vigilant of those scams. Man, I feel like I'm a vigilant person, but let me tell you, that guy had everything. He had my number on everything. It wasn't I mean, first he got me emotionally distraught, and then, like, I didn't know what I was believing, so all right. Cool. Well, you guys look like you're happy. I'm just taking a little breather here, sip some water because we're gonna get into the juicy part of this. All right, let's share again. Lori says, "Y'all get quiet when I'm in the zone." It's fascinating stuff, right? I mean, this is the stuff I think about. I don't watch TV. I do stuff like this. Sometimes I'll watch videos, but okay. I found this picture and I just thought this was such a cool sort of explanation, kind of tie-in to what we're thinking about when we think about the larger fourth dimension that is above and below or within and without this third dimension that we're in. And it's the shadows of an eclipse. Now, from these shadows, we have no idea what this tree looks like, right? I mean, if you're looking at this shadow, you really can't even fathom the branches and the roots and the leaves and the bark um, of the tree, which in itself, as a fourth dimensional creature, is everything from the seed to the scrap wood that it becomes once it's filled its life cycle. So that tree is all of those things, the seed, like throughout its whole life cycle. So there's this whole story behind these images of the sun casting light through the leaves of a tree, and we're trying to figure out what this dimension looks like. So don't feel bad if you don't quite understand the fourth dimension. It's not a big deal. Just understand that it is our next level of consciousness. It is our next level of evolution in awareness. But I love how when you kind of squint your eyes a little and try to look at this pattern, like you almost see a tree or a bush or something, you know? I mean, if you can open your mind a little bit. Another idea that this image instills for me is that because the sun is being eclipsed at this particular time, that sliver of light, that tiny little sliver of what we actually see, distorts everything. It distorts our entire perception. So we are definitely at the tip of the iceberg. There's a vast ocean, a vast cosmos of understanding that we are not even there yet. Um, I had ChatGPT kind of help me think about what this might look like from one of us being in the fourth dimension and manipulating our life and going through the various life cycles. And so I imagine this fourth dimensional me that is everything from the embryo to the ash, that is alive and thinking and conscious in the fourth dimension and experiencing just each little sliver of this whole being that I am. And this picture kind of came up and I just thought it was really interesting. So it's almost as if you've got your zodiac wheel here, and you're projecting the clues to your life and to reality onto the screen that you're seeing so that you can figure out how to navigate it. Um, so this is fantastic. I love this. If you think about yourself as this being, but even more complex and magnificent and amazing, and this is just a slice of you. We're all just little slices right now. Another way to think of it is like this, this is you. This is me. This is who we are. We are all of these things. And so when we see one another, like if I'm in this slice and you're in this slice, if we meet each other in this third dimensional realm at this moment in time, and we're these two different places, uh, we're the same thing. I hope that's making sense to you. That that all the division and all the disharmony and all the stupid, "You're right, I'm wrong," um, none of it's real. None of it's all just an illusion. It's an experience. You can even think of it as a game and then, laugh your way to the grave if you want to, because 'cause you'll be back if you want. I mean, you don't have to, but this is a pretty cool place. I mean, it looks pretty cool like this, but anyway, that is my presentation on the fourth dimension, and I would love to dive deeper in with you on these men and just do a little decoding. This is our fourth dimensional exercise to show you how we are all connected. Okay, and then I'm going to tie all of this into Buckminster Fuller at the end. So it's about 50 slides, but it should go pretty quick because I'm just adding on to the previous slide what it is that we're thinking about. And I didn't want to use a whole lot of different techniques in numerology because this wasn't a numerology talk, but there is some very interesting numerology here that I would love to share with you. So let's dive into this. So we're going to start with Ouspensky, Petor Demonovich Ouspensky, March 5th, 1878, the original spiritual OG. Yeah, guys, I did it. I went into the Russian cipher. I don't speak any other language except a little bit of Spanish. And I said, okay, well, he's Russian. And when I looked at, because on, what do you call it? Wikipedia, they spelled out his name for me. So I said, look at those symbols. Those symbols mean something. They meant something to his mother and they meant something to him as a person. And so I should treat it like something like that. So I went to Dakota.co, and over here you can pick your cipher. So I went to Russian and I picked Russian reduced. Okay, so that's where I got it. And then these are the symbols. Now I can't read Russian, but I did make sure that I used the proper words. So those of you that speak Russian, if I made a mistake, I'm sorry. But this is PDS Ouspensky in Russian reduced. And it comes to 106. Now I went to the periodic table of elements at the Royal Chemistry Society, and I grabbed palladium because palladium has an atomic weight of 106, and I got the number 46. Now, this might not seem like a very important number right now. Um, it is. It's going to be important as we get a little bit further through this decode. So I want you to remember 46. You can remember it by noting that on his birthday, it was day 64, and it's the palindrome of 46. So I want to also look at his astrology, because if you look at the description in the Royal Chemistry Society's website of palladium, then it's named after the Greek goddess Pallas. Pallas is an asteroid that we can absolutely add to our astrology charts. And so I thought that would be really cool to do that for Mr. Ouspensky. And what I noticed right off the bat was that he has Venus retrograde, Mercury, and Pallas all conjunct one another. So Athena Pallas is basically Venus energy. So we've got, y'all have heard me before talk about the difference between Venus and Mercury and then what happens when they get together. So we'll just review that real quick. So Mercury's the mind, Mercury's communication, Mercury is the exchange of knowledge and information. Mercury's going to take that apple and weigh it and price it out for you and tell you everything from the seed to the stem about it, a full analysis of the apple. Where Venus is going to take that apple and just go, oh my God, what a beautiful apple. It smells so good. It tastes so good. Look at how it feels. It's so crunchy and beautiful. She won't even care what it's called. But if you put them together, you get this extraordinary creative genius. Okay. You get a mind like no other. You get a mind that can handle information like music and color and sound and also do brain surgery. Okay? So this person had a genius mind, and it was his destiny to do so because it's where his fourth node is, his north node or his Rahu was. He wanted to figure out the codes to the universe, and he was very forward thinking, which makes sense. It was 100 years ago, and he's still talking about concepts that we really can't even understand. So that's his chart. The other guy's charts are pretty interesting too. Let's go back to this. Russian, the word tertium organum is 67. Okay. The word fourth dimension in English in Chaldean numerology is also 67. And also tertium and fourth are 32. And whatever that word is in Russian, and dimension, organum, is 35. So that is a pretty cool synchronicity to me, that this book was meant to be translated into English. And then this word is hypersphere, and hypersphere is 49 in both English and reduced Russian. So here we have another connection. Like they're both exactly 49, which this doesn't happen all the time. This is an unusual thing in numerology. So we're working with Russian and we're working with Chaldean. Let's look at his birth card. So he was born on March 5th. Oh, guys, you can get this birth card chart and other charts off of Logan's website, Cosmic Sugar, under resources with Decode Your Reality. You can get this chart there. And March 5th is the 5 of spades. Okay, cool. So we're just going to keep 5 of spades in mind. And then we're going to take a look at the spirit cards. So we're going to look on the right for the 5 of spades. This is the Venus-Mars line. And we get the 10 of hearts. Okay. The 10 of hearts is the 10 of cups in tarot. And what number is the 10 of cups? 46, which is Palladium's element number. So 46 and 106. So it ties right back to his name. All right. Next, we want to look at this guy, Nicholas Basarabov, or actually Nikolai. He doesn't have a whole lot of connections other than he's considered sort of the unknown go-between between Ouspensky and Bragdon to get this book published. And Bragdon was a critical figure in influencing the work of Buckminster Fuller. So I took his name in both Russian and Russian reduced, and I got 165, which is 78 and 87, and then 57. And I really liked the palindrome, so I just kept that there for a minute, but I went ahead and I looked up what 57 would be in the periodic table, and I got lanthium. And so it's derived from the Greek word lanthanion, meaning to lie hidden. So something about him, he wasn't supposed to be super famous. He was just coded to be the one to move this book from one physical location on Earth at a time when they didn't have internet and they didn't have email and they didn't have, ways to send electrons across the ocean. He carried this book probably on a boat all the way to the United States. So in English, Nikolai Basarabov is 54, which Tertium Organum in English is 54. So that's interesting. And this is just numerology, folks. If we go into the periodic table and grab Xenon, Xenos means stranger. So he didn't even know Ouspensky. He eventually came to know Bragdon, but he never knew Ouspensky. And this guy was interesting, this horn player. And this draftsman and engineer. And he probably had a whole library of these esoteric books, somebody that thought outside the box and pondered the ways of the universe. So then we have, I don't know why I had that there. Let me see. Oh, okay. I'm going to keep going because I don't remember why I put that there. I did want to get to his astrology though. Here we go. So if you'll notice in this gentleman's chart, just like P.D. Ouspensky, his Mercury and Venus are conjunct in Aquarius. The same guy. not the same guy, but like the same chart treatment, which I just think is super interesting. So you have these gentlemen from the mid 1800s, early 1900s, who were into this esoteric knowledge, who could think outside of the box, who could think like futurists, the way that they thought was way ahead of their time. And then his palace is down here in Leo in opposition to his Mercury and Venus, which was also retrograde. I might have put the wrong chart. No, look, they both had retrograde Venuses. You see that? So it's not surprising that this man really resonated with Ouspensky's work. They just have very similar placements. All right, let's get into Claude Bragdon. This is the hypercube guy. This was the guy who influenced Buckminster Fuller, and he's very interesting also. Let's take his name. Claude Bragdon, if you spell his name, and he was an American, so we're now switching over to English, but we're going to use a little bit more Russian. His numerology is 46. So that goes back to Palladium and back to P.D. Ouspensky. That's how these two guys are connected. And they actually did physically meet in real life. Claude Bragdon actually had to find P.D. Ouspensky to pay him the royalties for publishing his book. And then, of course, day 64 right there. So now, if we look at Claude's chart, and we look at his placements, boom, once again, it's another combination of a stellium with Pallas, Venus, and Mercury. This time they're a little bit farther apart, but they're, Mercury's closer to Pallas in this example, which is still Athena. It's Venus energy. So these are all together in his 11th house. Again, future thinking, putting it out there in the public eye, getting it, expressing it in an English language so that people could understand it and perceive it. So I just thought that was super interesting. They all have connections between like Venus, Mercury, and Pallas, and getting that information out there. But wait, there's more. If you take the word architect, and you put it into Chaldean numerology, you get 28. 28 is the 6 of wands, which translates into the 6 of clubs, which is the 19th card in the deck. And Pallas is 19, if you spell Pallas out. So these guys were all connected by the energy of Palladium, the asteroid Athena Pallas, and the positions of their astrology. Do you see how we're using this fourth dimensional tool? I mean, if you imagine yourself, oh, this is cool. Let me remember why I did that. Hypercube is 37. I think I had a prime number to associate with that, but I don't know where I put it. But we're just going to keep hypercube in mind. Oh yeah, I was going to use it for this example when we get to Buckminster. So let me just come back to you guys real quick and explain to you why the astrology is super interesting and why it is in fact a fourth dimensional tool for us to use to actually help us visualize what this realm might look like. So imagine you're that fourth dimensional creature. You're all forms of yourself from the embryo to the ash, and you're existing. That slice of you goes into 3D time. Could you not suppose, or could you not imagine an existence where upon that existence, you can manipulate the stars, or perhaps put your specific infant birthday slice where you want the stars to be, so that as you grow and evolve through, moving through 3D space, you can see that map on the stars. Because the planets and the stars also move through time. They also have an evolution and a cycle. And we've talked about this a lot. In the last video we went through, there's the circle going through the spiral, which is the evolution, which is moving up and out of third dimension and into the fourth dimension. So I'm hoping that makes sense. I'm hoping you guys are resonating with that. Let's finish this up with Buckminster Fuller, another brilliant OG. Okay. So Buckminster Fuller, Richard Buckminster Fuller, and the hypercube. If we take, he was also an architect as well, someone that understood, space and time, science, and also the higher esoteric ideas. If you take Richard Buckminster Fuller, his full name, 82 is the inverse of 28. And then Buckminster, which is what he's famous for, that's what everybody called him. They called him Bucky, is 37. So the hypercube and Buckminster are the same number. So that's an interesting synchronicity. And it's not it's literally like how it works. What we're doing is when we pluck on these synchronicities and we pull them out of the ether, I'm showing you how these 3D energies are all connected through the fourth dimension. If you take the way his name is famously known, Mr. Buckminster Fuller, he's 64, which goes back to all of this 64 days remaining, 46 in Palladium, 106, 106, just to remind you. But he was responsible for creating the Buckminster Fullerene, or the buckyball. Okay. And basically, this is C60. This is 60 carbon atoms arranged in the form of an icosahedron. And C60 is amazing for your health. Studies have shown that this administered to laboratory animals will double their lifespan. So the mechanism of action behind that is super interesting if you guys want to research that. I think Cliff High sells a product with this in it, if you're curious about it and want to know more. But it's carbon. So we're going back to our periodic table again. And carbon's responsible for not just C6, diamond, graphite, graphene, which is pencils, and then the fullerene, which is the buckyball. So C60, the fullerene is a number 42 in numerology. And then if we take the word architect and we put it into the Russian cipher, we get 42. So the Russian architect energy, again, through the fourth dimension, through time, coming in to influence the fullerene, which is 42. All right, now let's see what happens after that. Yeah, okay, so now the word immortal is 26, and reality projection is 60. And the reason I wanted to bring up immortal was because, nope, it'll come in the next slide probably. So reality projection, that's what we're doing here, right? That's what we do. That's what we do from the fourth dimension. We project this reality, this 3D holographic surface that we're immersed in, that is literally a world of surfaces. The deeper you go, the more surfaces you find. Oh, and buckyballs, that's right. Buckyballs in Chaldean numerology is 26. So we are an immortal doing reality projection, and buckyballs is tied to being an immortal. C60 can also be spelled out. It is 17, and the 17th card in the cards of illumination is 4 of clubs, which corresponds to the 4 of wands, which is 26th card in the deck of tarot, which again goes back to the buckyballs. Okay. So, continuing on, number 17 is the 59th prime number. Right here, if you guys can see that. 59th prime number. And the fourth dimension in Russian is 59. So, wow, there's a nice little synchronicity. C60 is the 59th prime. And if you spell fourth dimension in Russian, the reduced is 59. And I think we made it through that decode. But let's look at Buckminster's astrology real quick and see if it's any different than these guys. His is a lot different, right? He doesn't have that Mercury-Venus connection like the other guys did. And his palace is also separated. But he was somebody that was a scientist, an architect, someone that is a futurist. Look where his north node is, in Aquarius, right? Understanding the ether, which is Black Moon Lilith. She's the darkness, the void of creation. Understanding that and bringing it out in a practical way. I don't have the houses right because I don't know what time they were born, but it very likely could be that his this could be either in his 6th or 10th house. So that's interesting. But he's a station direct Mercury in Gemini. And that's a very strong position for Mercury. Somebody who's very much able to communicate ideas and concepts and science and be creative with it. And also having Sun and Jupiter together means that he's a big character. He's somebody who is comfortable with also being in the spotlight. That's where the South Node is in Leo. So someone who is okay being famous. All right. I hear my phone, but I don't see it. Okay. That is my presentation. I hope you guys had fun with this. I hope your minds are blown a little bit. I'm always amazed at how things connect when I'm doing a decode. It's pretty amazing. It really, really is. Like it'll sometimes it'll start off kind of slow and I'll just take notes and write down things. And then all of a sudden I'll get just, spirit will say, go look at this or go check this out. Or I'll watch a Logan decode on Decode Your Reality. I'll go, oh, let me try that. Because he'll, go through all the different methods he uses. So yeah, very inspired. What do you guys think? How are you guys feeling? Let's see. All right. Anja R says, this ball in this image reminds me of a dodecahedron I've seen at the Usher Art Gallery in Lincoln, UK. Yeah, the dodecahedron. I did do some numerology with that. I couldn't find any connections, but I wasn't trying to do a huge decode for you guys today. I wanted you just to sort of see how, as a tool, it is a way to cast the shadows, so to speak, of fourth dimensional energy. And then E Greens says, you should have been a surgeon with this decode presentation. Well, actually, I am a surgeon. I am an obstetrician gynecologist, so I deliver babies. Yeah, I'm very much one of those people that is, surgeon artist kind of energy. Ouchke Brower says, it seems that it's possible that you can decide as soul to come back if you learn the lesson. Yeah, I think if you want to come back, you can. But you don't necessarily have to. I don't think there is a soul trap. I think that you are out there in the fourth dimension creating this place for you. There's no one here that's conspiring to ruin your life or to ruin your day or to make you a miserable victim, sucking the life out of you. There's no one here to do that. It's all you. It's all coming from you. It's all coming from the center of your space, from your fourth dimensional self for you to experience. So, I don't know. I feel like walking around with a sense of gratitude and a little bit of a sense of humor. You can literally I don't know. It just seems it's like almost like the universe conforms to help you, to work with you, and to create the life that you want. You just have to know what you want and understand that you're safe. I mean, even so, here's the thing. This is perfect proof of it. So I believe that I am protected. I know this for a fact. Incident after incident throughout my life, things that could have happened don't. I slide by them or I sneak by them or they just miss me. It always happens. Do bad things happen to me? Sure. I'm not like anybody else. But yesterday is the perfect example. Because that scammer had me so psychologically wound up in knots, triggering I'm going to do some work on my fears for sure, but that's what that lesson taught me. But he had me so to the point where if I hadn't had the wherewithal to connect, or if my husband didn't have my car with my wallet and all my stuff in it, I could have potentially just gone to the bank and not told him what was going on. And that could have happened. But it didn't. The twist of fate was he didn't feel like switching the cars out of the garage and said, can I take your car? I'll be back in an hour. Sure. So that was it. And that little giving, that love and gratitude that I have for my husband for being such a wonderful person, letting him use my car for the day, that enabled me to be, in a way, protected. Because when I connected with him and we switched vehicles, he was on it. He was on it. And I was just holding on the phone with this guy, sort of wondering at this point, is this really a scam? This probably is, but I'm going to see how this plays out. So it's things like that. Your fourth dimensional self. What do you believe? What do you trust? What do you know about the universe? And if you're telling yourself, yeah, they're out to get me, they're out to fool me, they're out to trick me, then people are going to be out to fool you and out to trick you and out to get you. They will. You'll just attract that because that's what you believe. And if you believe that they're not, if you believe you're protected, then you are. And everything that's happening to you is for you. Yeah, no joke. Yesterday, I literally was like, my husband was telling me all these things about the courts, and his brother was on the phone telling me, no, they can't do that. They can't do it that way. You should have known. I was like, well, you know what? I don't know law. So I might even go back to law school or just learn law in order to protect myself a little more in case I'm in a situation like that. I mean, it was just so real the way he was describing everything to me, the badge number and the offense numbers and the judge. I mean, it was crazy. It was crazy. So, yes, Ragnarok Rider says the universe is conspiring to support the reality we're aligning ourselves with. 100%. 100%. So it's synchronous that you're watching this video because, you clicked on the video and brought me into your world. You want me to talk with you about these things. And so these energies that we're discussing, you're going to move forward. They're going to influence you. You're going to see things a little differently. At least I hope. At least I hope. Because you are the magician. You are the creator. Okay. It's all about you. And the more you and know what you're supposed to do, the better you can help other people. If your cup is full, then you can overflow. You can help. You can give. Okay. So, yeah, creating love, Luge, fellow traveler, for sure. All right, you guys. Well, I think I'm going to end it here. I'm going to put my little snappy little happy meme video up there to pump you up for the rest of the day and the weekend. And please don't believe that someone's out to get you unless you want them to be out to get you. And it's a game for you because no one's out to get you. You're beautiful. I love you guys. I will talk to you soon. We're going to get together probably Wednesday. I want to talk to you about the new moon coming up. And then the video after that, we're going to return to our timeline, our mathematical numerological timeline. And we're going to take a look at February 2nd and a little bit beyond because that is the next eclipse point. Okay. So ciao for now, my friends. Thank you so much for being here. I love y'all. Take care. Bye.